Hey everybody, video here for you today. Why don't we tack on another site to my Ancient America list. And as you can see here, I have added about maybe 18 more Ancient America sites to my place marks here. And in my estimate, maybe I'm half done putting all these place marks with the Ancient America sites. But this is Lost History at its finest as far as my Ancient America series. We are going down to Georgia, and this is very close to the very impressive Etowah Mound site, which is right down here. Let's just take a look at that just quick at the beginning of the video here. This site I'm going to talk about today is right next to the site of Etowah. And is that a coincidence? Well, I don't think so, but here, one of the more impressive Ancient America mound sites and one of the larger, more impressive pyramid mound structures in the U.S. But the site I'm going to talk about is just northwest of Etowah, and let's just call this the Lost Lad Mountain Stone Observatory, and it was located right in this area. But an overhead look at the site, this is Cartersville, Georgia, and this would have been an ideal spot for observing the sunrise straight to the east. And right down here, Stone Mound was taken out, and it was large. Now, thanks to a comment on my last video, I looked into this and I found this article and I thought it was excellent. Here is an artist's rendition of the Stone Observatory that once sat up top Lad's Mountain here, as it was named. And this was documented by some people who I have mentioned in my Ancient America series before. But that is pretty stunning as far as an Ancient America work. That now, where does this lie? Well, under the tires of drivers in Georgia. It was a remarkable example of indigenous architecture that is virtually unknown among archaeologists in North America outside its immediate environs. The complex oval stone structure on a mountaintop overlooking a 4-mile-long continuous conurbation. Conurbation? That's the first time I've seen that word. Anybody? Conurbation? But it says, of Native American towns and villages. In Europe or Latin America, it would have been restored and promoted as a spectacular tourist attraction with $1 million view. However, in mid-20th century Georgia, it and a stone mound on a terrace beneath it were crushed into gravel to repave a nearby state highway. In the proposed path of this highway were 3 large mounds, almost 2,000 years old. They were used as fill, dirt, for the highway. And here is an aerial photo. And this comes from 1938, and this shows what they called the Indian Fort, but I think it was a stone observatory up on the mountain here. Lad's Cave, Shaw Mound right here, the stone pyramid-type structure, and that's kind of what it looks like from overhead, but it was probably in the shape of a mound, and I talked about one of those in Ohio too. Stone structures, yes. And down here, there was what they call the leak mounds, and they are removed today. Here is the view of Lad's Mountain from the south, and the observatory was right up here, I guess. Etowah River and the Etowah Mounds and other removed mounds are right nearby here. It says Lad's Mountain is named after Alonzo J. Ladd. Ladd bought the Peck Lime Works outside of Cartersville in the early 1870s. For several decades, it had been mining limestone from the mountains, and apparently there was people here maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years before or earlier that were mining limestone from this mountain and building structures. During the 19th and early 20th century, several nationally famous archaeologists, such as Cyrus Thomas and Warren K. Moorhead, poked in the mysterious stone ruins on top of Lad's Mountain. And I have mentioned those people in videos. I have mentioned the Smithsonian, I believe. It says they didn't find any trophy artifacts. In fact, they didn't even find any pot shards, at least on the surface. The ruins were just in stones. Architecture, nothing that one could put on a shelf in a museum or in a parlor of a wealthy donor. In 1883, geologist Charles Whittlesea realized that the ruins were highly significant and focused his energies on an accurate description of the site. That is fortunate because otherwise the site would have been largely forgotten by the 21st century. But here is a diagram made in the 1800s by Charles Whittlesea, and I mentioned him in other videos. It seemed he did very good work. Stone ruins atop of this hill with little gateways, and that tells me one thing: they were observing the heavens. But here is Whittlesea's description of what he called the Old Fort in 1883. and this was republished in the Archaeological Survey of Northern Georgia in 1966. It has now the appearance of a heavy stone fence which has fallen down. There are 6 openings or entrances having a breadth of 10 to 60 inches situated at irregular distances. It is an irregular oval enclosing the rocky summit of the hill, the largest diameter of which is 220 feet and a short diameter of 200. The elevation of the knob at the center is 50 feet above the terrace or bench, and that tells me they were astronomers. Lad Mountain is covered with an open growth of oaks. There is nothing in this structure suggestive of a fort except its elevated position, which, however, by no means is accessible. The openings are too numerous to warrant the idea of a defensive work. It is more probable that this was the scene of imposing public procession and displays and was approached by crowds of persons from all sides of the opening. But here is an artist's work, Richard Thornton. He is an architect. But here is his rendition of what this place used to look like. Were they observing the heavens from this high spot? I think they were. Here is one of the few pics from the site. This is from 1937. National Park archaeologist Calvin Johnson observes the destruction of the Ladd Stone Circle in 1937 for the conversion into crushed stone for a highway. But it says, what do we know about Ladd's Mountain Observatory? The structure was definitely astronomical and ceremonial architecture. Despite Whittlesea's comments, the location probably was not the scene of large crowds attending ceremonies. And kind of the priests were the ones who attended the observatories in the Mayan culture. And there was stone observatories built in Peru that are probably 3,000 years old, dated, presumably. So that is all questions that need to be asked. It says the slopes are steep on all sides of the natural terrace. It consisted of 3 concentric oval dolomite limestone rings. There are 6 non-symmetrical gaps in the outer wall which were apparently aligned to the solar azimuth. The structure was tilted to align with the winter solstice sunset, which is the beginning of the Maya New Year. But here from this pic, you can tell this was not a small structure, and it probably would have taken quite a while to build. Who built it? Well, we got the Etowah site, very close. Did the builders of Etowah also use the limestone from this mountain here and build a rock observatory? That is a possibility. Also, there's a possibility that the Etowah builders just built on top of an older site, that people built this stone observatory. A lot of questions, a lot of unanswered questions, but at least somebody's asking them here, and at least you know about this site. Nothing about this site on YouTube. That is my report on the lost Ladd Mountain Stone Observatory right next to the village of Etowah. And were the Mayans here? Did they build observatories in the southern United States? Well, I'll leave that up to my commentators in the comment section. But I thought that was very interesting. Totally wiped out from history. A couple places there. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.